When you hear Panama, what appears first? A canal, a straw hat, offshore money, perhaps even a Van Halen song. Yet this Central American country emerged from a geopolitical showdown, spent decades divided by a foreign-controlled zone, and Aveanama is an isthmus, a narrow bridge joining North and South America, while separating the Caribbean from the Pacific. At its narrowest, it is around 80 kilometers across. More than 4 million people live there, alongside a modern capital, tropical forests, Caribbean islands, Pacific beaches, and one of history's most important waterways. The Panama Canal handles an estimated 5% of world trade. A ship crossing it avoids the enormous journey around South America, saving thousands of kilometers, weeks of travel, and vast amounts of fuel. That advantage made Panama valuable long before independence. Spain used the isthmus to move South American treasure. Later, merchants, engineers, investors, and governments imagined cutting a permanent waterway between the oceans. The first great modern attempt came from France. Ferdinand de Lesseps had become an international hero after overseeing the Suez Canal, and he believed his success could be repeated in Panama. In 1881, his company began work on an even more ambitious project. Thousands of French citizens invested their savings. Engineers, laborers, machinery, and money poured into what was then a province of Colombia. But Panama was not Suez. The Egyptian canal crossed relatively flat, dry terrain. Panama offered mountains, dense jungle, unstable earth, violent rain, flooding rivers, malaria, and yellow fever. De Lesseps originally insisted on a sea-level canal, requiring workers to cut directly through the continental divide. Landslides repeatedly filled excavations that had taken months to clear. The Chagres River could rise suddenly and destroy equipment, bridges, and entire sections of work. Disease was even more devastating. Doctors did not yet understand that mosquitoes transmitted yellow fever and malaria. Hospitals placed water beneath bed legs to stop insects crawling upward, accidentally creating mosquito breeding sites. Workers arrived healthy and died within weeks. The exact number is unknown because French records counted mainly hospital deaths, but estimates suggest more than 20,000 died during the French period, including the later American construction. The total is commonly placed near 25,000. By 1889, the French company had collapsed. Investors lost fortunes, and families lost their savings. Investigators then discovered that politicians and newspapers had allegedly been bribed to hide the company's finances. The Panama scandal became one of the greatest crises of France's Third Republic. De Lesseps, once celebrated as a national genius, was convicted with other officials, although his sentence was later overturned. His dream ended in bankruptcy, disgrace, and mass death. Yet the abandoned excavations still had value. The United States wanted a canal connecting its Atlantic and Pacific fleets, especially after the Spanish-American War showed how slowly warships traveled around South America. Washington considered Nicaragua, but supporters of Panama fought back. The remaining French company also wanted payment for its assets, giving engineer and lobbyist Philippe Bunau Varilla a personal interest in persuading America to choose Panama. The United States negotiated with Colombia for the right to complete the canal. A treaty was signed, but the Colombian Senate rejected it, believing the terms surrendered too much control for too little payment. Panama already had a history of separatist movements, but this time the rebels knew the most powerful country in the region wanted the same outcome they did. In November 1903, Panamanian separatists declared independence. American warships prevented Colombia from moving troops effectively across the isthmus. The rebellion succeeded with almost no fighting, and the United States recognized the new country within days. Panama was not invented from nothing by Washington. Local separatism had deep roots, but American intervention made the decisive difference. Then came the price. Philippe Bunau Varilla, a Frenchman who had not lived permanently in Panama for years, became the new country's representative in Washington. On November 18th, he signed the Hay-Bunau-Varilla Treaty before a Panamanian delegation could renegotiate it. The United States received control of a 10-mile wide strip surrounding the canal and power to govern it almost as sovereign territory. Panama had gained independence, but almost immediately surrendered control of the land running through its center. The Americans changed the design, created locks, dammed the Chagres River, built Garden Lake, and attacked mosquito breeding grounds. The canal finally opened in 1914. It was an engineering triumph, but the surrounding canal zone became something resembling an American colony inside Panama. It had its own governor, courts, police, schools, housing, shops, and communities populated largely by American residents known as zonians. The zone was not a sealed wall, but it divided territory, authority, and daily life. Panamanians watched one of the world's most famous transport routes cross their country under foreign control. Workers were also separated through discriminatory gold roll and silver roll systems that generally favored white Americans over Caribbean and local laborers. Resentment grew for generations. In January 1964, clashes over whether the Panamanian flag should fly beside the American flag in the canal zone escalated into deadly violence. More than 20 Panamanians and 4 American soldiers were killed. The crisis made the old arrangement impossible to ignore. In 1977, Panamanian leader Omar Torrijos and American President Jimmy Carter signed treaties establishing a gradual transfer. The canal zone officially disappeared in 1979. Full control of the waterway passed to Panama at noon on December 31, 1999. Nearly a century after independence, Panamanians finally governed the canal that had shaped their birth as a nation. And then there is the hat. The famous Panama hat is not Panamanian. It is woven in Ecuador from tequila straw. Ecuadorian hats passed through Panama on trade routes and protected laborers from the tropical sun. When Theodore Roosevelt visited the canal works in 1906, photographs showed him wearing one. The images helped transform it into an international symbol of travel, confidence, and warm weather elegance. The name stayed with Panama while Ecuador did the weaving. That mistake became so powerful that the incorrect name eventually became more famous than the craft's true birthplace. Some take the story further and claim the hat gave Paris its affectionate nickname, Paname. Panama hats became fashionable in France, and stylish Parisians wore them. But the nickname's origin remains uncertain. Another major theory connects Paname to the huge French canal scandal that dominated Parisian politics in the 1890s. Others trace it to older slang for something enormous or astonishing. So Panama may have given Paris its nickname through fashion, corruption, or a mixture of both. The connection is real, but the neat explanation is probably too perfect to prove. Football has now given Panama another way to introduce itself. The national team known as Los Canaleros, the Canal Men, reached its first World Cup in 2018. The results were brutal: a 3-0 defeat to Belgium, a 6-1 loss against England, and a 2-1 defeat to Tunisia. Yet the tournament produced one unforgettable scene. With England already leading heavily, 37-year-old defender Philippe Baloy met a free kick and scored Panama's first World Cup goal. Supporters celebrated as though they had won the match. The scoreboard showed humiliation. The stands showed history. Panama returned in 2026 as the only Central American country in the tournament. This second appearance has still ended early, but the performances have been far more competitive. Narrow 1-0 defeats against Ghana and Croatia eliminated Los Canaleros before their final group match against England. They have not yet found the victory they wanted, but they no longer look overwhelmed by the stage. That fits Panama's larger story. This is a nation repeatedly treated as a route, a shortcut, or a strategic prize for outsiders. France saw an investment. The United States saw a naval and commercial passage. Global shipping sees a faster road between oceans. Even the world's most famous Panama hat belongs culturally to Ecuador. But Panama is not merely the place through which other people pass. It survived a catastrophic engineering project, foreign intervention, political scandal, disease, division, and a century-long struggle for sovereignty. It eventually reclaimed the canal that once seemed to belong to everyone except Panamanians. A country born beside an unfinished trench now controls one of the machines that keeps the world moving. Its football team carries the canal in its nickname, but also the stubbornness required to outlast history. Like, subscribe, and watch the next video. See you there.